0213, the edge of Chapone. An AD-SID sensor tube had just been planted into the wet earth. Its indicator light blinked once and went out. At Nakhon Phanom, hundreds of kilometers away, a thin trace of signal appeared on an IBM System 360 screen like a breath. The operator leaned close to the waveform the jungle had just spoken. The UHSF 255.6 channel recorder clicked 3 short beeps. In Nakhon Phanom, the coordinator put a small red wax mark on the plexiglass next to the word Mujia. The ozone smell from the new telex hummed through the room. In 1966, the battlefield in Vietnam was another world. The dense, suffocating tropical rainforest hid every sign and challenged every human invention. Light rarely reached the forest floor. The endless rain turned the ground to mud. To radar, it was a wall. Radar, the pride of military science, had its waves bent by hills and canopy reduced to meaningless echoes. Reconnaissance aircraft returned only blurry photographs. Infrared, once expected to pick up engine heat or human body heat, was deadened by humidity. Even the most advanced aircraft from the F-4, phantom to the B-52 Stratofortress, were helpless before a 40-meter canopy. They could only bomb on guesswork. The watch log recorded AD-SID Tich 12, burial depth 30-40 Semitish wet mud, substrate stable signal 7 seconds. Fresh red soil clung to the tube proof it had just heard someone pass. A near immutable belief formed within the US military. The jungle in Vietnam's weather were an absolute shield, a silent ally of the North Vietnamese. Nature had become an impregnable barrier. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, a lifeline more than 16,000 kilometers long through Laos and Cambodia, embodied that helplessness. Under the canopy, thousands of trucks and porters moved like shadows. Even the generals at the Pentagon, with the most advanced technology in the world, had to accept a bitter truth: there was no way to see through the jungle night. From that faint blink of signal, an idea took shape. If the eyes failed, we would listen to the jungle. The opposing arguments at the time were clear: if radar could not penetrate the leaves, if aerial photos were only soulless swaths of green, if infrared was neutralized by the weather, then there was no way to detect the enemy. Every bombing mission, however many millions it cost, was often a blind gamble. Post-Rolling Thunder reports 1965-1966 showed thousands of tons of bombs had fallen on the forest with little effect. The Ho Chi Minh Trail kept running. Men and materiel continued to flow south, despite every attempt to stop them. So, the question hanging over Washington was simple. How do you see into a jungle when both human eyes and machines are blind? How do you break the natural shield the North Vietnamese relied upon? Out of that helplessness came a tentative idea: listen instead of look. This was the moment American ingenuity would seek an answer. Could the signal have been just a wild animal? In 1966, in the gloomy days of the Vietnam War, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara walked into a meeting room at the Pentagon. He brought with him a bold idea. He called it an electronic barrier, a high-tech system unlike anything seen before, promising to seal off the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the lifeline of North Vietnam's logistics. No need for more troops or fortifications, just sensors dropped into the jungle to hear and see the enemy. According to McNamara, this plan would change how America fought. An invisible fence operated by machines would choke off the flow of weapons and manpower heading south. But when he presented it, the room answered only with silence. A Navy colonel joked softly, "Just hang sonobuoys on trees and we're done." The room replied with dry laughter. McNamara scribbled quickly, "A jungle isn't an ocean, but sound is still data." Suspicious looks, sarcastic smiles, and quiet murmurs continued. To many senior officers, it was a fantasy going against every logic of warfare. The first objection focused on the conditions in the Vietnamese jungle. High humidity and months of rain turned the ground to mud and quickly corroded materials. Electronic devices struggled to operate reliably. Batteries drained early wires, short-circuited circuits failed. Simulated testing showed a significant failure rate after only a few weeks. The second objection came from the dense canopy towering dozens of meters high, forming a natural roof that weakened signals. Sensors had to transmit audio vibration or heat data to an analysis station, but the signals were often jammed by wind animals and running water. Even when EC-121R aircraft flew low to collect them, they received only scattered fragments. A test record noted, "Wind animal noise dominates. Preliminary conclusion system cannot distinguish targets." The third objection lay in the harsh terrain. The trail clung to mountain passes, ravines, and swamps. Sensors dropped from altitude were nearly impossible to maintain. Falling into deep gullies or getting stuck in canopy branches rendered them useless. An internal report from 1966 noted a significant loss rate after deployment, and finally cost. McNamara estimated $1.5 billion to build and $740 million per year to operate. With that amount, the U.S. could equip dozens of divisions or launch thousands of sorties. General William Westmoreland called it Westmoreland's folly, a mistake that could not be justified. To them, this wasn't just about budget, but a symbol of technological arrogance. All of those arguments converged into one core belief: you cannot defeat nature with machines. The Vietnamese jungle, with its humidity canopy and terrain, was not a battlefield technology could conquer. They laughed not because they doubted science, but because they believed nature set the rules of war and machines could not break them. In 1967, while faint dismissive smiles still echoed through conference rooms at the Pentagon, the U.S. Air Force quietly launched a project called Operation Igloo White. It wasn't a loud bombing campaign or a dramatic amphibious landing. This was a technological revolution, an unprecedented effort to turn the Vietnamese jungle, once considered untouchable, into a giant control panel. Those who once mocked McNamara's idea were about to face a new reality. Nature was no longer an absolute enemy. The Igloo White system consisted of 3 synchronized components, a network of sensors along the Ho Chi Minh Trail relay aircraft, collecting signals, and an analysis center in Thailand. Imagine an invisible spiderweb stretched across Laos and Cambodia. Every strand shivered when North Vietnamese convoys moved. Units like the 553rd Reconnaissance Wing and VO-67 began dropping devices from OP-2E Neptune and CH-3C aircraft. More than 20,000 sensors were deployed from the Mujia Pass to Tichapone in the first year alone, covering critical supply routes. Each sensor was small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, yet capable of reshaping how America fought on the battlefield. A testing rig at NKP measured baseline vibration, a steel mallet pounding on wet wood at 3 Hz to simulate truck wheels. The spectrum display showed a 6,300 Hz band, the signature a cowsid would hunt. There were 2 main sensor types: ADSID, seismic detecting footsteps or truck wheels, and a COSID, acoustic capturing engine noise or light impacts on dry leaves. They were cleverly disguised, shaped like broken branches, or buried themselves into moist soil. Many models survived extended rain, with small batteries strong enough to transmit data during critical periods. A 1968 report recorded a fairly high operational success rate. A VO-67 engineer wrote in his diary, "We don't see the enemy. We only hear wheels in the jungle, and we know somewhere somebody is about to die." Signals didn't fly straight to Washington. They were collected by relay aircraft, such as the EC-121R Warning Star or the QU-22B, and transmitted to the Infiltration Surveillance Center, ISC, the heart of Igloo White, located at Nakhon Phanom Air Base in Thailand. There, IBM System 360 computers processed data, continuously converting signals into target coordinates in under 90 seconds. At 0200, a vibration spike from an ADSID appeared as a bright dot on a digital map. Data was immediately forwarded to on-call strike units. The detect identify attack cycle shrank to minutes. Igloo White's power came from speed and precision. In 1968, the system detected thousands of North Vietnamese convoys. A significant portion were hit thanks to sensor cueing. The AC-130 Spectre gunship, armed with 20mm Gatling cannons and a 105mm gun, quickly became a nightmare for nighttime truck crews. A typical mission near Chapone recorded a 12-vehicle convoy detected at 0300. The AC-130 arrived 20 minutes later and destroyed most targets within 45 minutes. One AC-130 pilot later recalled, We never actually saw them, just light on a screen, then it vanished. That feeling was colder than any night in Laos. More importantly, Igloo White made nature an ally. Dense canopy and harsh terrain once shielded North Vietnam, but now concealed America's sensors. Many PAVN units had no idea they were monitored for months. An internal 1969 document read, "The enemy strikes at night with precision as if there are eyes in the forest." From 1967 to 1969, the sensor network expanded at a staggering rate. Thousands of devices were added each month, covering secondary trails. Relay aircraft increased flight hours, and ISC upgraded IBM systems to handle more daily signals. Under ideal conditions, response time dropped to roughly 5 minutes. Although the cost was enormous, results slowly justified the investment. Convoys once free to move at night were forced to switch to plastic fuel pipelines or bicycle porters to reduce detectable signatures. Operation Commando Hunt, assisted by Igloo White, was credited with sharply reducing North Vietnamese supplies from 1968 to 1970. Igloo White was a turning point. The jungle was no longer an impenetrable shield. It became part of America's war machine. Tiny sensors and IBM computers did what radar could not see through the night canopy. Those who mocked McNamara now faced a new question: could this technology change the entire course of the war? In 1968, Operation Igloo White entered its peak. The U.S. sensor network stretched across the Ho Chi Minh Trail. North Vietnamese convoys, once free to move under the cover of darkness, were now tracked step by step. The jungle had begun to speak. Each convoy, on average 10-15 trucks carrying ammunition, fuel, or supplies, became a clear target. ADSID recorded wheel vibrations, while a CowZid captured engine noise in the night. Signals were relayed through EC-121R aircraft to the ISC center at Nakhon Phanom, Thailand. Target coordinates quickly appeared on analysis screens. AC-130 Spectre crews received orders immediately. A December 1968 report noted an 18-truck convoy near Bon Karai was destroyed within 30 minutes. By 1970-1971, the number of vehicles destroyed was estimated in the tens of thousands each year. Each nighttime strike was a cut into North Vietnam's supply line. Igloo White created a phenomenon, a sound map of the trail. Tens of thousands of sensors formed a network of ears along 16,000 kilometers. Real-time data allowed planners to trace logistics routes down to the kilometer. A 1969 internal report stated, "We know where the trucks go when they go and how fast they're moving." The trail had become an open book. PAVN did not stand still. From late 1968, reconnaissance teams hunted sensors. Poorly disguised units were destroyed with bayonets or explosives. They created sound traps, unmanned bicycles, loudspeakers playing engine noise, or blasted music to overwhelm signals. These methods disabled part of the network and caused some American strikes to hit decoy targets. Beside a dry creek bed, scouts spotted a branch growing backward and antenna tip under moss. Bolt cutters snapped the branch in 3 seconds. The aluminum body was buried beneath the roots of a strangler fig. Engineering teams spread sandbags across the road and soaked the surface to swallow vibrations. Drivers wrapped wet blankets around the hoods of J's 66 trucks to muffle engine noise. Every kilogram of gasoline was a survival decision. At night, these seemingly crude measures could fool U.S. sensors for just a few minutes, enough to sharpen both ends of the tactical blade. But the U.S. reacted quickly. Engineers adjusted frequency filters, separating wind and animal noises from engine signatures. Improved CowZid models identified distinctive truck bands. ADSID distinguished the vibrations of heavy vehicles from footsteps and small wildlife. New sensors were deployed continuously to maintain coverage density. A 1969 patch added bandpass filters separating rain noise and hoofed animals. The ZIL 130 engine band held steady around 120-180 Hz with harmonics at 240 at 360 Hz. The algorithm marked it as probable truck. Igloo White's true power lay in prediction. Accumulated data showed the enemy preferred to move from 1 Sosverorish 4:00 a.m. When the main route was hit, they shifted to branches. ISC sent predicted coordinates directly to AC-130 patrols. For example, in 1970, near A Shao, a 15-truck convoy was detected at 0230. The AC-130 arrived 15 minutes later and destroyed most targets within 25 minutes. The command channel flashed a short order, in hot left-hand orbit. LUU-2 flares fell like a waterfall through the canopy, revealing small glimmers on the dirt road. The 40mm Bofors gun fired in bursts, its streams slicing the night like needles. Inside ISC, the screen showed a line of signal dots, a string of lights running across the digital map. One by one, the dots went dark as fire erupted. Within minutes, vibration signals became strike coordinates passed to the AC-130 crews. 02:41 a.m. The ISC floor went silent. 22 ADSID dots glowed on the digital trail near Bon Leboy, forming a perfect line. Operators leaned closer. The vibration signature was unmistakable. A full convoy. Target priority to 3, the supervisor said. His voice sounded flat. Relay aircraft confirmed transmission. In the air, AC-130 call sign, Spectre 06, adjusted its orbit. Through the gun camera, shapes flickered like faint heat ghosts beneath the canopy. On the ISC map, the 22 dots shimmered. The first gun burst landed. One dot blinked twice, then went dark. A second burst. Another dot vanished. Then another. Inside the room, teletype printers screamed, ribbon arms shuddering, spitting out coordinates faster than hands could tear paper. Fans hammered against hot circuit boards. Wax marks smeared under the pressure of sweaty thumbs. On screen, the dots disappeared one at a time, in a regular rhythm, like someone slowly pulling pearls from a necklace. 19. 15. 12. 7. No one spoke. The only sound was the clatter of IBM keyboards and the distant hum of radar relays. At 03:19 a.m., the last dot vanished. Silence flooded the room. Under the canopy, there was no wreckage to see, only data. One operator whispered, not sure to whom they were just lights on a map. Now they're not. R03:25 a.m. ISC analysis floor. Lieutenant Carter rested his finger on the confirm strike key. It was just a square button, its label faded under a strip of tape. On the electronic map, ADSID dots flickered like fireflies, nothing more than vibration signals shimmering across a lattice of lines. Coordinates validated. The technician behind him sat emotionless. Carter pressed down. The key yielded easily, almost too easily. The teletype printer screamed, the smell of hot ink rising. On the screen, one dot went dark, then another. His heartbeat skipped. Outside the thick glass pane, the air conditioner hummed like distant wind. A long silence hung in the room. Carter stared at the keyboard and thought, I didn't kill anyone. I just turned off a light. But in his mind, those lights became truck headlights on a wet mountain road and a pair of hands gripping a steering wheel. Next target, the controller said. Carter typed. Another dot blinked, then disappeared. He never saw their faces, but every night he watched the lights go out. During Commando Hunt 1968-1972, Igloo White guided most nighttime missions with impressive success rates. A 1970 U.S. Air Force report stated, "The jungle has become transparent. The rainforest became see-through. Tiny sensors turned nature into a data ally. Although PAVN fought back, they could not fully stop it." A 1971 North Vietnamese document read, "The enemy strikes like ghosts, knowing exactly where we are, even in darkness." The trail, once untouchable, was now penetrated daily, forcing supply units to switch to plastic fuel pipelines or bicycle porters to reduce detectable signatures. Igloo White declared that intelligence and technology could shape the battlefield even when the opponent was an endless jungle. Those small machines not only listened to the forest, they forced the forest to reveal itself. On the other side, every burned convoy meant rations, winter coats, and malaria medicine would never reach the front. One by one, the dots went dark as fire erupted. Within minutes, vibration signals became strike coordinates passed to the AC-130 crews. Operation Igloo White from 1967 to 1973 was a rare technological feat in the history of warfare. More than 20,000 sensors were dropped into the jungles of Southeast Asia, detecting tens of thousands of targets along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Construction costs exceeded $1 billion, not including the enormous annual maintenance budget. those numbers revealed one ambition to turn nature into a weapon of war. But as the glow of technology faded, the real cost began to emerge. Even with designs adapted for tropical climates, sensors faced constant risk. Humidity ruined microcircuits. Batteries drained faster than expected. A 1970 report stated that a percentage of sensors stopped functioning within 10 days due to water ingress. Jungle rats, insects, even lightning became invisible enemies, unpredictable and relentless. A major storm in 1969 destroyed hundreds of sensors in a single night. Harsh terrain made maintenance nearly impossible, turning part of the equipment into technological debris under the canopy. At the start of the rainy season, villagers placed metal tubes with antennas on their porches as charms. No one knew the objects had once sent entire air crews into the sky at night. Signal interference was another challenge. Wind noise, flowing water, and animals could trigger ADS-ID, generating countless false alerts each day and overwhelming processing at ISC. Data had to be filtered constantly to avoid overloading the IBM system or 360 computers. Transparent overlays covered maps, colored pins marked logistics hubs at Ban Karai and Ban Laboy. Wax pencil arrows blurred with sweat the third shift of the night. Pavian adapted as well. They used decoy targets, unmanned bicycles, loudspeakers playing engine noise, even hot fires to fool thermal sensors. In 1970, an airstrike targeted a herd of water buffalo, carrying speakers, evidence of how complex a data battlefield could become. The K marker window was crossed out, handwritten decoy suspected. No one spoke, only the hum of fans and the smell of teletype ink filled the room. The CIA questioned Igloo White's true effectiveness. The Air Force claimed roughly 12,000 trucks destroyed, but declassified 1972 documents suggested many targets may have been shacks, bicycles, or non-existent. SR-71 reconnaissance imagery showed a far lower percentage of actual trucks. The trail continued to operate through alternate routes and plastic fuel pipelines. The CIA concluded America won in technology but lost in strategy. Radio loss reports recorded 28 AC-130 missions never returned between 1968 and 1972. Each fading dot on radar meant 7 men disappeared beneath the canopy. The sensors weren't bad. They were honest to the problem, assigned sever the trail with overhead firepower. The failure lay in strategic assumptions about the enemy's endurance and ability to adapt. When the U.S. withdrew under the Paris Agreement in 1973, Igloo White was abandoned unfinished. Thousands of sensors remained in the jungle. The ISC center in Nakhon Phanom closed. IBM systems were dismantled. Relay aircraft flew home. Total program cost is estimated at over $3 billion, placing it among the most expensive military projects in history. And the price wasn't counted in money alone. Igloo White drained massive resources and diverted attention from ground operations in the South. Many commanders warned this was a strategic mistake. Technology cannot replace a holistic vision. A data analyst at ISC wrote in his final 1973 report, "Each time the screen flickered, I thought about the road, the trucks, and the people behind those signals. Yet Igloo White left a profound lesson. It proved that nature, however unforgiving, is not invulnerable. Instead of relying solely on firepower, the United States used sensors, computers, and data analysis to adapt to the jungle. That system, despite its flaws, laid the foundation for modern electronic warfare. The lesson lies in the ability to turn a natural enemy into part of the strategy." When Operation Igloo White came to an end in 1973, the jungles of Southeast Asia returned to their natural silence. Thousands of sensors were left beneath the canopy, relics of a technological dream. The ISC center at Nakhon Phanom, once the heart of the system, now sat empty. More than $3 billion, equivalent to tens of billions today, vanished into the smoke and dust of war. Those who once mocked Robert McNamara had reason to say they were right. Igloo White did not change the outcome of the Vietnam War, but from those ashes a new legacy emerged, one that shaped how humans would wage war for decades. Igloo White opened the era of modern surveillance where information became a weapon. The first legacy was the foundation of ISR doctrine, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Tens of thousands of ADSID and ACOUSID sensors proved that a real-time surveillance network could operate in brutal environments. The idea of spreading tiny devices listening for weak signals became the groundwork for drones, ground sensors, and today's data fusion systems. A 1974 U.S. Air Force report remarked, "The battlefield no longer holds only troops and guns. It is a data space." ISR. The backbone of modern warfare began the moment the Vietnamese jungle was forced to speak. From Task Force Alpha to modern C4ISR centers is a straight-line sensors report. Targets algorithms prioritize, and the trigger is pulled after only a few clock cycles. The ISC Center at Nakhon Phanom was another legacy. With its IBM System 360 computers, ISC became the first tactical data center placed close to a combat zone. Between 1968 and 1972, it processed thousands of signals per day, turning sound and vibration into target coordinates within seconds. For the first time, data was analyzed directly at the battlefield to guide firepower. Modern command hubs from C4ISR to Joint Operations Systems still carry ISC's fingerprints. The deepest lesson of Igloo White was not in the number of vehicles destroyed, but in the realization that information could turn nature into data. The jungle, once considered unreachable, became a reservoir of exploitable signals. When IBM computers stripped engine noise from wind and AC-130s struck in total darkness, nature stopped being the enemy, it became the decision platform. That lesson travels far beyond Vietnam, influencing how militaries face deserts, jungles, ice, and oceans. But the legacy also carries bitterness. Despite its sophistication, Igloo White could not overturn America's strategic failure. It cut into enemy logistics, but could not stop willpower or flexible supply networks. When U.S. forces withdrew in 1973, the system was abandoned, reminding everyone that no technology can replace a sound strategy. Yet, in defeat, Igloo White left a durable message: humanity can challenge nature not through firepower, but through intellect. Tiny sensors and faint signals accomplished what thousands of bombing sorties could not. They made the jungle speak. The conclusion is not about victory or loss, but the lesson left behind. Generals, critics, and those who scoffed at the idea of listening to the jungle ultimately watched nature speak louder than anyone. From simple sensors to drones and AI Igloo, White's echo remains in the clash between humans and the environment. Intelligence never goes out of style. In 1973, the machine room at Nakhon Phanom went dark. Deep in the jungle, an ADSID sensor still transmitted its final micropulses. The forest had learned to speak. There was simply no one left to listen. An IBM tape labeled Commando Hunt 7th still sat on the shelf. Outside, the early season rain drummed on the NKP tin roof. The paper label peeled at the edges, the sun-stressed glue cracking white, but the code TCH12 was still legible. A decade later, Igloo White's descendants wore pave penny laser pads and scanned infrared over desert sands they still used. The same idea, sensors spoke, pilots listened.